Welcome to Deep Thought, Biology and Culture, Social Classes. I'm going to tell you what, and some other people may be able to pick this up, but I can almost look at somebody and get a general idea about their social class. And I'm going to emphasize the word general because at the same time, you never know. And part of it is just purely on their physicality. Now, like I said, it's not 100% accurate, but there's a lot of accuracy to it, And there's always something else. There's always a dynamic dimension to it where someone can be an exception, but it tends to be a strong thing. And this is something I noticed back in the 90s, because I said, look, people who follow me know I like a fat ass. And I said, how is it all the women from poor backgrounds, destitute, or, struggling to make it day to day, seem to have some nice shapely bodies? Meanwhile, the women from a more upper class backgrounds, they're attractive, physically attractive and everything, and healthy, but don't have that same sexual energy, that same sexual draw. And I noticed that. It was it's very interesting. Also, when I would look at the women, I say, the upper class ones, they got a peaceful look to them. Peaceful, almost innocent look. Meanwhile, the ones from the more lower classes, right? The ones I would see tended to, definitely had those brick house bodies, but also had a rougher visages. So, and that's when I really started paying attention to it. I was like, that affects something. And it was like, if you look at the classes, it's deep because it's deeper than just saying how much money you making or something. There are certain behaviors that each class has. Sociologists have actually picked up on this and have talked about it. Like each class is a subculture within itself. And it also affects someone's physicality and everything. All right. And I'm gonna once again say this is a general statement. Right. But there are certain things that go on, with health and everything. And there's been like some people who have written in their books when they were talking about, I say the more upper class, I say the top 10%, and they had figured out, they had looked and they had said, oh yeah, they tend to be healthy, they tend to be in better shape and everything. I saw that in three different places, and there might be a book out there that discusses, but when you look at the upper class, they just tend to be healthier, more in shape. But what is it that they do? One, you'd be hard pressed to see any of them smoking a cigarette. Not to say they don't, you'd be hard pressed, or abusing alcohol hard. Now you might get some stuff when they're young, really abusing some stuff, but even then, it's like that at the lower end. Right, and it's not as frequent as maybe any type of stuff like drinking and smoking and stuff as maybe the lower classes. Also, the food is different. Those upper classes get a better grade of food, and then the lower classes, they ain't eating some of the best stuff. And then that's still culture, right? Indeed, and this was something I discussed somewhere. I might even written it somewhere. I don't know. I got so much stuff out there. But I was saying if you had, say you had some twins that were born, right? And there might even be a study out there about that. I would have to check. And if somebody's found something on it, let me know. But I said the hypothetical that I provided, I said, okay, you got some twins that were born, but for, whatever reason, they were separated at birth, which happens a lot. One is, they totally identical biologically, totally identical, right? If you put them together, you couldn't tell them apart, at least at birth. But then one is One is adopted by a family that's, I mean, you still got to have a decent family, but more closer to working class, and live more in that environment. While the other one is adopted by a more upper class family, right? What I said when I presented that hypothesis was that they would look different as adults. They would look different. Indeed, if they were to meet each other, the first thought would be, oh, we're similar. Oh, we look at each other, but it'd probably be a totally different thing. For example, say it's the one who was born into the more, like it was a male, and he was born more into the, no, let me use a female. That's a better one. I got mostly men on here anyway, so y'all can see what I'm about to say. Okay, say the woman, she's born in, the one twin was sent to the more middle class or working class family. But then there was some upheaval where the parents divorced, and, her living situation got even worse. Got even worse. Maybe had to move to a poor neighborhood, maybe more in a position to face a lot of trauma that could be faced, or even with, adopted family members, more likely to face molestation, stuff like that, Also, maybe not have the same amount of education. So when she grows older, in her DNA, she should look a certain way, have a certain sensual body type and everything. And she actually has a natural intellect. But because of the cultural circumstances, it doesn't come out, at least in a positive way, because of the culture, right? She might be, maybe 50 pounds overweight, might have abused some drugs or alcohol or something. So she's not optimal, right? So she don't even look the same. Now you take the other twin. The other twin was in an upper class environment, in ballet since she could walk, and sports, other stuff, practicing for the SATs, had to take a test to get into the daycare. No, they do that, right? But she's closer to her natural DNA size because, she's active. She's physically active. She hasn't abused drugs or anything, and, had a better education. So hypothetically, the two could meet, and they might just say, wow, we got the same eye color, but there'd be so many differences, right? That's culture. Now, even though, and because of the culture, okay, like say hypothetically, the one in the upper class, she goes to graduate school, she's a professional, got a high recorded IQ. The other one doesn't finish high school. But yet their intelligence is really the same biologically. And some people, but because of the culture where she grew up in, it's not apparent. She was too busy trying to survive than to be studying some books or reading the classics or, practicing the cello or something. So it's when you look at that affects what happens. Economics affected, how you able to live, how you able to eat, affects a whole lot. Social classes. That's why I say sociologists, they'll tell you, you look at the classes, they're definite, each one's a definite subculture. Because you got to worry about different things. And it's a deep thing. It's a deep thought. Like, I'll use an example. There's always, we haven't had anything talking about IQ of races and everything, but I would submit you can't really look at the IQ of any group without first looking at the culture. So, something for y'all to think about. And let me talk about something. I'm going to go a little deeper. I talked about this thing I talked about before, but I'll talk about it tomorrow anyway. Think about what I'm saying, and I'll get back with all y'all tomorrow. Peace and blessings.